Welcome back to the Star Trek Critic. Today's episode is 11001001, which marks when the next generation noticeably stopped limping around with poor plots and started decent Trek-worthy shows. However, they get graded on technical errors here, so it could still get a low score. The plot? Cybernetic beings steal the Enterprise. Yes! Not these guys, though. There is also a subplot warning the future humans of hidden algorithms in social media trapping human minds with computer fantasy addictions. The first point is lost since this is reused footage from Star Trek 3. That's actually Earth's moon. Another point is lost for the terrible design of the space station. If the ships are trapped inside and you are attacked, they are screwed. Geordi says number 1. The space station has an engineering table just like the Enterprise and has the Enterprise on it. Wasn't Commander Quinteros a dilithium miner? Look closely. What happened to the engineers behind the Binars? They disappear after a while. One thing unique about this 1980s episode, the Binars are truly non-binary. They are not male or female, which means they are naturally born with no gender identifiers. So unless you're born without gender identifying body parts, you're probably not non-binary. Identifying as non-binary is something different. The next point is lost for not calling Starbase 74 and telling them they would be a week late. That would give the Binars a chance to steal the Wellington instead. -1 point for Starfleet not knowing a supernova exploded near the Binars' home planet. The scientists would have seen that and asked the Binars if they needed help. After all, that's Starfleet's job. Their description of the Binars is quite similar to the board. This might help them sometime in the future. This is foreshadowing. Doesn't Riker's time off usually end up in a brothel? -1 point for Picard's office door knowing he was going to turn the corner. Commander Riker thinks there are 2 Wesleys. -1 point for Wesley being in the rainbow shirt 2 episodes in a row by airdate. The Binars are stacking the computer. That means they're gonna steal it. -1 point for Wesley not having a communicator because he is on duty on the bridge. -1 point for Wesley being put in charge of the bridge. There is a crew of 1,000. The bridge will always have minimal staffing. Wesley's position is more of an intern or OJT or sitting on the bridge for college credits. He's not going to be up there by himself. One of these days we will actually see a game of Parisi Squares. It probably looks like this. Worf always has the best
we will
line.
Be victorious at whatever the cost.
It looks like Riker and Tasha might get a little romantic in the future, but we never find out. Aww. Listen closely. The computer voice breathes. So -1 point.
In the main computer banks. It is necessary to
Data is creatively painting xylo eggs. -1 point for Riker's comment. It didn't sound right in the 80s and it doesn't sound right now. And they don't like it either, look at that. Dr. Crusher is going to talk about nanotechnology, which is what is the subject of the season 3 premiere when she makes her comeback. Look at the turbo lift. There is no cut in the carpet and a single set of doors, so it's definitely not real. -1 point. Riker clearly has nothing to do. He could go bother Deanna Troi, but she's not in the show, so -1 point. Is he propositioning the Binars? How did he get away with saying this on 80s TV? Riker takes forever setting up his jazz bar. Then he insults all blondes. Then this poor woman for not being sultry enough. And the Binars are thinking, he's just a dirty old man, isn't he? And here is Minuet. But wait, Riker just wandered by the holodeck. The Binars never invited any of the crew to try it out. So -1 point since there is a hole in their plan. Now for some really terrible pickup lines. No wonder Deanna dumped him. Commander Quinteros is on the bridge with the Binars. Wesley has some questions. Quinteros says, why not ask them yourself? And Wesley says, well, they look like girls and I'm afraid of girls. That one girl on the Edo planet almost had me killed. And the other engineers have disappeared, so -1 point. Wesley obviously never listened to Yoda. Jonathan Frakes played the trombone for this scene, but they overdubbed it, so -1 point. And the other band members clearly aren't playing, especially the piano player, so -1 more point. -1 point for cheesy small talk. If Riker would realize how tacky his pickup lines are, he would realize why he's by himself on the holodeck. However, this is real-world foreshadowing, where computer programs constantly say what you want to hear, to the point where people are addicted to the computer world. This isn't so far-fetched after all. And -1 point for Riker kissing a holographic blow-up doll. He really needs to get a hobby. Or is this his hobby? Picard's like, oops, I should have knocked first. You're supposed to leave your tie on the doorknob like everybody else does. Minuet says, hey Jean-Luc, let's trash talk your first officer in really bad French and he won't even know it. Picard says, that's a great idea, and I'm going to remind him about this when he finds Barclay in here doing the same thing. Riker says, you spoke to me in French. Then Minuet says in French, you nutball, I was talking about you, not to you. Picard is thinking, hey, in here I can drink holographic wine while I'm on duty. Data is awaiting inspiration, which is interrupted by Wesley and his frayed knot joke. Wesley says, help, I'm the only one here on the bridge. All the officers are on Starbase getting shit-faced right now. Geordi says, Wesley, you didn't call engineering specifically, so -1 point, and we're gonna go down to engineering and not call them either, so -1 more point. Wesley says, I number 2, while in the background the Binars plan to steal the galaxy's largest mobile computer. The next point is lost because there is nobody in engineering. You don't just park the Enterprise, turn it off, and everyone go to the mall. Somebody is going to stay behind. -1 point for Wesley not asking the Binars if they're running a test program that would affect engineering. They aren't girls, Wesley, you don't have to be afraid of them. This is Data saying we are screwed. Data admits he is losing his mind. -1 point for Data and Geordi finding the flaw. The Binars would have programmed the computer to set off a ship-wide evacuation alarm or something, since no one was in engineering, and Wesley was just lucky enough to see that glitch on the sensor. The Binars wouldn't be that discreet if they were so desperate to steal the ship. Geordi's in such a panic he thinks he is Data. Data tells Wesley to program the ship to fly to a safe distance. Wesley says, Captain Picard's gonna give me an ass whooping if I do that without his permission. -1 point for reused footage of crew members panicking and running around aimlessly. The Binars are secretly patting themselves on the back. And now they're all running. -1 point for the typical kid falling in a panic run on every TV show scene. And why is the carpet wrinkled? Instead of stuffing themselves into the transporter, they should really just go to the airlock. Wesley should be the last to leave, so -1 point. And hopefully these adults are the parents of these kids. And according to this episode, there are at least 20 transporters on the ship. Tasha and Worf should still be in their Parisi Squares outfits, so -1 point. Commander Quintero strangely left the ship without the Binars, so -1 point. Worf thinks the left fielder is responsible.
The left fielder's name. Why?
Worf says, I number 3. This is when Wesley should have left the ship when Geordi and Data came to the bridge, or he should have left with them. Wesley should know better. Most likely the Binars programmed the computer to say this to get everybody off the ship. -1 point since none of them tried contacting the captain by communicator. This is a beautiful screenshot of the warriors together. This is why you don't have spaceships inside. It was supposed to explode in 4 minutes. Luckily it was a false alarm, or the whole thing would have been destroyed by now. McKinley Station is much more practical and more cost effective. And if something goes dreadfully wrong, you don't lose nearly as much. The Enterprise backs out, moves forward, but then turns around before going to warp speed. I am going to blame the Binars on that. Picard is thinking, the graphics in here are really good, while Riker is thinking, I just want to get laid. Ironically, this comment is foreshadowing of current social media algorithms that always tell people what they want to hear so they keep going back to their computer. Commander Riker says he will take Minuet over Deanna Troi any day. Picard says love always begins that way, with the illusion more real than the woman. Their comments explain why both of them are single, doesn't it? Minuet says she doesn't dance. The computer's explanation was too human and wordy, so -1 point. Did you notice computers always have the same answer?
That information is not available.
I'm not programmed to give you that information.
I am not programmed to respond in this area.
Wow, Data doesn't even know what to do now. When you see the two walking together, do you ever think of Batman and Robin? -1 point for Captain's Log talking down to the audience. He is way too busy to do this right now. Of course, in an emergency, you have to stop to argue about which way to go. While initiating auto to destruct, they should have also arranged to beam into an escape pod or shuttlecraft, but they didn't, so -1 point. The Binars would want Commander Riker to be able to get to the bridge, so -1 point. Tasha says her station is on the bridge, and she is rushing repairs on the USS Melbourne. She keeps speaking for other people. Data tries to take the blame, but it was Picard and Riker who left Wesley in charge of the bridge and no one in engineering. -1 point for Starbase 74 having no working spaceships to defend them. The Binars are dying. Aww. That's what she said. This is more 1980s foreshadowing of the current future. If the internet dies, so do you. Minus 1 point here because the skull cap pops out. The next point is lost since not enough time passes here. Data is transferred from the homeworld to the ship's computer, then the electromagnetic pulse goes by. But if it went by right now, it would knock out the Enterprise as well. The plan would only work if the data was downloaded and the Enterprise steered clear of the pulse and returned maybe a week later. Of course, if Starfleet actually did scientific research like our tax money is paying them to do, they would have noticed a supernova is going to take out one of their allied planets and offer help, but they didn't. So now the Binars have to steal the Enterprise. Minuet now thinks she's the third baseman, and they're like, oh, maybe we should contact Starbase 74. How long did it take them to figure that one out? Minus 1 point for going up to their bridge before contacting Starbase 74. They're wasting valuable time. Riker says, I'm here, sir, right behind you. Data mansplains computer passwords, and now he is no help at all. Minus 1 point here. The Binars always do things in pairs, so they would automatically try to trap 2 crewmen. Minus 1 point here because there is no way Captain Picard can read that. Minus 1 point here. This identifying land bridge means the planet is Haven. The Binars say, thank you for helping us and we're ready to go to jail. Minus 1 point for Picard and Riker flying the ship with a crew of 2. Another ship would have taken a skeleton crew to Binars to board the Enterprise and fly it back. Now Picard advertises Allstate Insurance. Minus 1 point for reused footage from the beginning of the show. The crew is worried. They're all thinking, as soon as the producers realize you only need 2 people to fly the ship, we are getting fired. The people are all going the other way now. And this beautiful woman is not Minuet, so Riker dumps her. Aww. The ship flies away, but first Riker has to let out a really good fart. So who were the Binars? Ron Brown was the drummer. The bass player was Abdul Salam El Razak, who performed in theater and has 40 screen credits including Glory, Terminator 2, and Malcolm X. Jack Sheldon, the piano player, was actually famous for triple-tonguing the trumpet, and has 50 screen credits for trumpeting. He was also on Gilligan's Island, Adam 12, and Freaky Friday. Kellyanne McNally was 1-1. Iva Lane was 0-0, and she was an extra in the first Star Trek movie. Alexandra Johnson was 1-0. She was also on Newhart, Remington Steele, and 30-something. Katie Boyer was 0-1 with 50 screen credits, including The Island, The Lost World, and Sliders. Gene Dynarski is in that private club of actors who were in the first season of the original series and The Next Generation. He was also on The Monkees, The A-Team, and The X-Files. Carolyn McCormick played Minuet, who will be back in a few seasons, and you can see her on LA Law, Law and Order, and The Practice. 11001001, the first Next Generation episode that really grabbed everyone's interest, featuring a non-binary cybernetic species and subtly foreshadowing computer algorithms that cause internet addiction, gets a score of 58%. Yes! Thanks for viewing. Be sure to leave comments below, check out my other videos and playlists, and click that like button, the share button, the subscribe button, and I'll see you again soon.
This is not a drill.
Wait, did that computer voice sound like Lieutenant Worf? And they learned an electromagnetic pulse will take out a cybernetic being. So why didn't they try that with the Borg?